big news today is that the Supreme Court said, no, Colorado, you can't do that. The states can't take a national candidate off the ballots because of the 14th Amendment, because the state has nothing. The 14th Amendment is something that the Congress would have to do.
Yeah, that's basically what they're saying. And it's fascinating on the legal front. It's a little more complicated than the happy headlines, which I am happy about, legitimately happy about.
9-0.
A 9-0 unanimous ruling, including Sotomayor, which I'm shocked. Sotomayor is essentially AOC, right?
She's the clown of the court. She really has
She really is ridiculous. Yeah. And she is trying to make herself out into this sort of Ruth Bader Ginsburg figure. Now, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was a hardcore liberal, but a serious liberal at some point, at some level, where I don't believe Sotomayor is. But this was so obvious that they could not do this, that even Sotomayor was on board for this, and also Kagan and Ketanji Brown Jackson. So you get all three liberals. Now, they do have a qualified yes on this, and they say, basically, we agree that Colorado couldn't do that. That's the issue in front of the court. We believe the majority is going too far, basically saying the only way this can be implemented is by legislation of Congress. They kind of leave it open as to what federal powers could be utilized there, but it is it's interesting to note that they did write a dissent here and say, hey, wait a minute, we're not going as far as the majority is. This does... If you want to go down, can we go down the full House of Cards situation here for just a second, which is kind of, it's hilarious in a way. But they're basically saying Congress would have to pass a law saying, that he engaged in insurrection and therefore should be thrown off the ballots. Now,
and you can't do that because the House belongs to the Republicans.
Now, remember, the Republicans have a very small majority here. Mm-hmm. A couple of House seats somehow change, God forbid, and this situation changes. So that's one thing to think about. Another thing to think about, and again, we're going down the full House of Cards situation here. This is not going to happen. I'm just telling you, it's not going to happen. But
I wouldn't rule anything out.
Look,
a dog-faced alien could come down and take over the White House on January 7th, and I would be like, well, didn't see it coming, but makes sense.
Yeah, okay. I guess you could say the whole House of Cards thing had a lot of, the show had a lot of crazy turns. I mean, he made his wife...
Which all look tame at this point.
He made his wife president. Yes. Spoiler alert. Also, Kevin Spacey was married to her. Also, spoiler alert, wouldn't have happened in real life. There's been developments in that case that may make you understand that. But going beyond the House of Cards thing, in theory, let's just say Donald Trump wins the presidential election. And the Democrats hold the Senate and turn over the House. That new Congress takes seat on January 3rd. You'll note a couple days before January 6th. So you have a new, in theory, Democratic Congress, Democratic president that could theoretically come up with it. Now,
all they have to do is vote and say he was
an insurrectionist,
an agent of insurrection, and therefore cannot be president of the United States.
Now, there's reason to believe in the ruling that the Supreme Court would not allow this to happen, but still, it's theoretically possible. They could vote and say, yes, he's an insurrectionist, that we're going to pull him off the ballot, and then you'd have a couple days to get this over. Now, the way I think I would understand that is whoever Trump chose as his VP essentially would take over. So it wouldn't be like they'd be putting Biden in for longer or some Democrat would be named. But I mean, look, if the American people elected Donald Trump and they just pulled him off, like, no, you got to go with your VP now, there would be a little bit of uproar over that. Again, not going to happen, but still, it is a fascinating.
What makes you say that with such? I mean, I don't think it's going to happen either. No, I don't think it's going to happen. But you say it with such certainty.
Well,
what makes you say it with such? You know what's crazy is we used to say, these things aren't going to happen, and we'd fairly, we'd believe it because crazy things haven't happened. You can't use that same kind of conviction anymore.
I say it the same way I said it to start the show, that Donald Trump was not going to lose in court today. I knew he wasn't going to lose in court today. There was no way he was going to lose in court today. However, there was definitely a way he could have lost in court today and we all would have been screwed. Like that is like, in reality, I can't imagine anything like this happening, but just to give you the outlying possibility of whether you should get all your, preparation supplies and head to the mountains right now. Like, if that were to happen, God only knows.
If that would have happened today, I would have gotten all my stuff and head to the mountains right now.
You would have, seriously. He would have been at the ranch.
I would have.
Can we address one other big part of this, too?
Yeah.
Which is separate from all the legal back and forth, which, we are going to, I'm sure, cover over the next couple of days in more depth. But can we just stop and pause for a second and focus on how seriously the media as a whole took this ridiculous ruling from Colorado and the idiotic Lawrence Tribe-esque experts who told us it was the right thing?
Yeah.
They said over and over again, actually, this can happen, and it's absolutely right. And we saw expert after expert trotted out on television to tell us, no, really, this is the right way to go. This is really what is going to happen. And the Supreme Court very well might overturn this. And then 9-0.
And I may say, convinced people who, if they would just use their common sense, when it first came out, you'd say, they can't do that. They can't do that.
We know that.
Because he's not been charged with insurrection or anything else. He can't do that. These people came on television and convinced half the country that was reasonable and really not just possible, but could be likely.
Mm-hmm. And the only thing that would stop it is this right-wing Supreme Court that, of course, will go with the
9-0.
And then it was 9-0, and you got even Sotomayor on board for it. So, an embarrassing failure for the media yet again. It is important to note these things, even though I know we sound like a broken record on it. But they convince half the people in the country that, this is obviously the right thing. Nobody believed it was the right thing. There was never any hope for it legally in the courts. It was always a dead end. It was a Hail Mary of Hail Marys of Hail Marys, and they decided to try it because they're throwing every piece of spaghetti against the wall to see if it will stick. But they never had a chance. This was always absurd. The people who put it through in the California Supreme Court should be ashamed of themselves. They knew it wasn't real. They knew it wasn't true, and they did it anyway.
Well, I will tell you, we're sitting knee high in spaghetti right now, and that's going to continue, and it's going to get faster and faster and worse. They are just trying anything and everything to win. Ethics, the ends justify the means. So look how we may, in the end, drown in a pile of spaghetti because this is their approach. And I'm telling you, the lawfare that is coming our way is going to be insane.